Perhaps every man has experienced a moment when he felt hopelessly outmatched in the pursuit of a woman who truly captivated his heart. Despite all his efforts, politeness, kindness, attentiveness, there's a nagging feeling that he's just not the one she wants. And then she utters the fateful words, "You're wonderful, you're a great friend." Followed by an echoing void and the question in his mind, why do they choose him and not me? If these thoughts resonate with you, it's worth listening to what comes next, as it can fundamentally change your self-perception and how women see you. This discussion will delve into what truly motivates women, what makes them desire and choose, rather than what they outwardly state. It will reveal the secret to becoming that exceptional man who doesn't plead, wait, or diminish himself, but rather leads, provokes, and conquers with his authenticity. The first step on this path will be to reprogram your mindset. Previously, we touched upon attracting the attention of a woman who's a 10, even if you feel like a 5. Back then, the key to success was changing your self-perception, reevaluating your reality. But today, the task is even more ambitious. It's not enough to simply see yourself differently, you must start acting differently. We will offer an effective and straightforward way to get what you want from women, without asking permission, without fear of appearing arrogant, or facing rejection. Perhaps these tips won't sit well with a strict mother or school teacher, as we were taught from childhood to be polite, to make everyone comfortable. Unbeknownst to many, they internalized that desiring is wrong, expressing desires is aggressive, and asking for something is inconvenient. And this has turned many men into invisible figures, polite but unnoticeable, present but easily replaceable. But here's a truth few dare to voice: there's nothing more alluring than a man who knows exactly what he wants. A man who looks a woman in the eye and openly states his desires, without games or hints, unafraid of seeming too pushy. Women sense this, it draws them in, because such confidence awakens something beyond mere logic within them, appealing directly to their instincts. If frankness seems offensive, perhaps there's a confusion between sincerity and rudeness. There's a vast difference between honesty and disrespect, and we'll show you how to elegantly balance on that edge. But first, ask yourself, how many times have you stayed silent when you wanted to tell a woman you desired more than just friendship? How many times have you settled for the role of the nice guy, hoping she would eventually appreciate all your virtues? How many times have you watched as she preferred guys who, frankly, don't possess half of what you have to offer? The difference between you isn't in your money, height, or physique. It's about how they present themselves. They don't ask, they show, they lead. They desire, and women follow those who take on a leadership role. And that's the starting point. You need to shed outdated beliefs, discard the notion that desire must be hidden. To desire is natural. And it's this correctly channeled masculine energy that awakens genuine interest in a woman, an interest born not from rehearsed lines, but from how a man presents himself to the world, with confidence, determination, and desire. And this is the first step towards transformation. Next, we'll introduce a simple, almost childlike exercise that nonetheless holds enough power to begin changing your life for the better. This exercise will help reawaken your desires, gain clarity, and find courage. And believe me, once mastered, you'll realize the game was never about pleasing anyone. The game was always about positioning yourself correctly. The goal is to enter the game and win. Do you recall that moment when a certain woman took your breath away? The one whose mere presence seemed to stop time, and your sole desire was to touch her, to see reciprocal interest and desire in her eyes. But instead of action, you froze, put on a mask of indifference, and, swallowing your true feelings, watched her smile at someone else. Perhaps to someone who possessed half your sensitivity, but had the courage to voice his desires. It is at this moment that many men falter. Desire burns within, but it remains imprisoned, hidden beneath a mask of safe conversation and harmless kindness. As a result, the man becomes predictable, expected, and ultimately, invisible. More than anything, women want to feel desired. To feel it in your tone of voice, in your confident gaze, in the way you lead a conversation. But to do this, you must learn to articulate your desires. And this is where the exercises that can change everything come into play. We'll discuss the concept of I want, a simple yet powerful expression that forms the foundation of desire and leadership. It's what distinguishes a person passively waiting from one who initiates action. When a man uses this phrase naturally and confidently, he awakens in women an attraction to a bold and decisive man, even if they're not always ready to admit it. It's crucial to emphasize that this is not about rudeness, arrogance, or aggression, which are merely masks that hide weakness. A true man is self-assured and knows how to elegantly express his desires. He looks a woman in the eye and calmly says, "I want to see you again." He sends messages that don't ask but invite, don't compel but engage. A man who openly speaks his desires stands out from the crowd of nice guys who are quickly forgotten, transforming into a man she can't stop thinking about. A prime example is the story of Daniel, a student who was always considerate and cautious but couldn't hold a woman's interest for long. One day during a session, he confessed, "I feel it, but I can't say it." He was encouraged to practice the phrase "I want" 5 times a day, starting with simple things. "I want coffee, I want this seat, I want to leave now." At first, Daniel felt uncomfortable, fearing he might appear selfish. However, over time, his posture and voice became more confident, and his gaze more direct. When he applied this to a woman, the result was astonishing. He looked at her, smiled, and said, "I don't want to just be your friend." She didn't react with anger or offense. Instead, she smiled back and said, "Finally." Women are waiting for a man to assert himself, to show he's bold enough to desire, to lead, and to act, rather than remaining passive. When a man knows what he wants and isn't afraid to declare it, his attractiveness doesn't depend on his looks or wealth. The main thing is to be authentic, and authenticity is irresistible. For the next few days, it's recommended to practice the phrase "I want" 5 times a day in various situations. It's important to say it clearly, confidently, and intentionally, observing the reactions of others and your own feelings. This exercise will allow you to feel how your inner energy shifts, how people react differently, and how women's attitudes change. This is just the first step, followed by changes in everything, from your gait to a woman's reaction after a first date. A man who knows his desires and doesn't apologize for them doesn't just attract, he captivates and remains memorable. You're about to learn how to achieve this, how to unlock your potential by no longer hiding behind politeness and instead taking charge of your desires. Perhaps you've noticed how some men, upon entering a room, change the atmosphere. They aren't necessarily the most handsome or loudest, but they possess magnetism and confidence. When they look at a woman, she feels their intention, which becomes irresistible when it's clear and confident. It's important to ask yourself when a woman last felt that from you. This is the impact of I want, when it stops being just an exercise and becomes part of your personality. It's an energy that grows within, transforming you from one who waits to one who leads. There's nothing more attractive than a man who leads, doesn't hesitate, doesn't hide his feelings, and isn't afraid to show his desire. A common fear among men isn't being rejected, but appearing too pushy. They're afraid to express desire and scare a woman away. However, the truth is that women don't run from assertive men, but from insecure ones. It's not desire that frightens them, but doubt and hesitation. When a man looks her in the eye and calmly, firmly, and with a hint of playfulness, speaks of his desires, a woman feels it. If she's interested, she'll yield, because he did what most men don't, he showed desire and confidence. Consider the story of Raphael, a student who always waited for the right moment and a signal from a woman, which resulted in him remaining just a friend. After 2 weeks of practicing I want, he transformed. He didn't become a different person, he simply stopped asking permission for his feelings. One evening with a woman he'd known for months, he looked at her and said, "I want you now, but only if you want me to." Silence followed, then she smiled in surprise and replied, "Then stop waiting." A keen eye will note, the essence isn't in the words spoken, but in the manner of their delivery. Every body movement becomes an expressive accompaniment, demonstrating desire devoid of pushiness or neediness, true and genuine. The task is to cultivate this inner state within yourself, where I want isn't just a phrase, but a way of life, manifesting in every gaze, touch, and gesture. This art isn't mastered by memorizing phrases, It's born from allowing yourself to feel and express your emotions uncensored, without fear of causing discomfort. A person aware of their desires and authenticity doesn't fear others' reactions, on the contrary, they provoke interest. Imagine, on an upcoming date, instead of striving to appear perfect, you simply are present, unhurried, but with clear intentions. You don't coerce, but you provoke. You're not playing a role, you're leading. Instead of an uncertain question like, "Maybe we could go out sometime," you state directly, "I want to see you tomorrow." Instead of a hesitant, "Will I see you again?" a confident, "I enjoyed spending time with you, and I want to do it again," rings out. And what if the answer is no? That's fine.